You've probably heard that building a personal brand is crucial, but how exactly does it pave the way for recognition, impact, and success? If you're seeking that elusive recipe to be known, be seen, be heard, and be recognized, then having a robust personal brand online and at work is your secret ingredient. In today's episode, How to Build Your Personal Brand Online and at Work, we're unpacking the essentials with my amazing guest, Cher Jones, your brand at work expert, corporate trainer, and LinkedIn learning instructor. We'll explore why a solid personal brand is your ticket to professional recognition and the array of benefits it unlocks. We'll dive into the key elements that make a powerful personal brand and the initial steps to build one from the ground up. We're going to discuss how to keep it real while fitting in at work, how to avoid the common personal branding mistakes, and how working from home or the office part time has changed the game for building your personal brand. Type in a +1 if you're excited. Hello and welcome to the Dare to Differentiate show, where we're all about owning your voice, value, and visibility with confidence. Comment to let us know where you're tuning in from. I'm your host, Diana YK Chan, LinkedIn top voice, LinkedIn learning instructor, and founder of My Marketability, where I help you differentiate your brand and advocate for yourself with confidence. Whether you're tuning in live or watching the replay, I am so delighted that you're here. If we're not connected yet, make sure to follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. All right. So I recently launched my 7th LinkedIn Learning Nano course on defining your personal brand. So make sure to go check it out for free. Leave a glowing 5-star review and share it with your network. As my friend Cher always says, sharing is caring. So in celebration of this course launch, I decided to host a live with my friend Cher Jones to talk about personal branding online and at work. So let me introduce you to Cher. Cher, whom I met over about a decade ago in my neighborhood. Cher is a personal branding powerhouse with over 25 years of experience in corporate communications, marketing, and broadcast media. Cher brings a wealth of experience, having honed her craft for 12 years, teaching professionals to become a triple threat by aligning their personal brand with the career and the company's ethos. Her dynamic approach and infectious energy have made her a sought-after speaker, trainer, and coach across industries like tech, finance, and government. Cher's not just sharing strategies, she's helped shaping leaders to thrive in a digital workplace. Cher is also a fellow LinkedIn instructor with courses on live streaming on LinkedIn, how in-house creators can power your company brand, insider tips and tricks for creators on LinkedIn. I have looked up to Cher for years for insight and inspiration when I started my LinkedIn Live a few years ago. So make sure to connect, follow, and learn from one of the best in business. Type in #GoShare. Let's welcome Cher to the show.
Oh my goodness, Diana. I have been looking forward to this all week. Okay. I'm not even kidding. I've been looking forward to this all week. Today is a good day.
Today is a good day. I am so excited to have you here. This is the first time on the show, and I've known you for like a decade.
Isn't that crazy? And like now, this is why I've been looking forward to it all week. When you let me know that this was like the first time, because I think we interact so many times in
Yes,
other people's lives and whatnot. That's like, what? I've never been on your show. That's crazy. Well, here we are.
I know, but this is a perfect time because I just launched a course on personal branding, and
Congratulations,
you
number
focus.
7,
Thank
by the
you.
way.
7, isn't that crazy? 7. I was like, lucky
Yes.
7. Like, I gotta bring you on the show because you talk about branding at work and I talk about branding online. So I thought this was like a perfect combo for us to discuss.
Hmm.
Yeah. Before we dive into questions today, how it's going to work is we're going to ask each other questions and we're going to share our insights and expertise here. Sure. Before we dive into that, can you share a little bit with our audience, a little bit about the work that you do and some of like the highs for 2023 so far as we approach year end here?
Oh, yeah. I'm really excited just how the evolution of how I've been dealing with personal branding and how I've niched right down into the personal brand at work. Because right now, while online is important and online is still a big chunk of your personal brand at work, I think that there's so many conflicting things that those who are not trying to be an entrepreneur, those who are not trying to be LinkedIn's next top voice are being told they need to do when they actually don't, but they they do need to build their brands at work. They do need to leverage those digital skills. They do need to throttle what they're learning. But what I've been doing is helping people build their brands at work so it helps them in their day-to-day job, so it can
Yeah.
support what they're doing. It helps them build their career, so that gives them that strategy that their brand is tapping into. And of course, now as we see how the connection between the personal brand and the company brand matters even more for so many different areas of the brand, of the company and personal brand, I just bring that all together in a corporate training package. And that's what I've been doing in a lot of coaching as well. And I'm just excited to see how this is evolving going into 2024, and the adoption rate of people really recognizing and getting to the point where they say, oh my gosh, I need to build my brand at work.
Yeah, yeah. I want to hear from the audience if this is something you want to work on, building your brand at work, like type in hashtag brand. I've been talking a lot about doubling down on your brand. Like I really believe is key to really amplifying your marketability to be seen and to recognize for opportunities here. So let's dive into the questions as we go in here together here. So my first question, Cher, for us to answer is why is building a personal brand online and at work important? What are the key benefits?
Okay, so I would say the number one benefit right now is being able to go beyond your direct reach. So people will, those that you work with, they recognize your value. They may or may not recognize your value, but for the most part, they've had those interactions and expectations of what it's like to work with you. But those who have never worked with you before, what most people are doing, if they haven't worked on their language, if they haven't worked on what they want their brands to be, they're playing what I call broken telephone. We all played that kid. We all played that game when we were a kid, where it's like, there's 10 people in the line, and you start with a secret and you make it go all the way down to the end of the line. By the time you get to the end of the line, it didn't sound like what you started with. And so that's the same thing with our brands at work, because your brand is literally, and I'm preaching to the choir right now. So really, I know I'm not educating you, Diana, but I know for our audience, we have to
Yeah.
remind them that their brands are the stories that other people have about them. And of course, the expectations that other people set when they're going to interact with them for the first time or the next time. So we as individuals have a lot of control over control, influence over the stories that people are telling themselves about you. So what we need is that personal brand. And we have to think about how that relates to people who are working with you. What do you want them to say about you? Are you giving them the language to talk about you? When you show up in meetings, do you introduce yourself in a way that they're going to remember you, respect you, refer you? All of that stuff matters. And so we need to recognize that there's different things that we need to do, from our profiles to our relationships to our introductions. We have to be intentional about the language that we are putting out there, especially now, especially as you mentioned in the intro, this hybrid environment where we have to now set the stage for those who are not in our immediate vicinity to connect with us the first time. We want to make sure that they have the right language and the right story and the right expectations. So that's why personal branding at work right now is so important.
I cannot agree more. I'm going to echo a bit more here. Is what I'm hearing is that you want to brand yourself before others brand you, right? Like
100%.
really, the way I like to describe it, like personal branding is like wedding planning, where you get to design of how you want others to experience you. Right back to
Yes.
controlling that narrative, right? It's that wedding planning. How do you want to experience you and feel about you? And as a result, you become more memorable. Right, that's really
100%.
what branding is. And what I've seen with the work that I do share with helping a lot of people making career transition is that when you have a well-defined brand, you're able to communicate your value a lot more effectively.
Mhm.
You become more clear, more concise, more compelling as well. You're able to present and promote yourself in a way with greater confidence
Yep.
of what you bring to the table. And as a result, that leads to better opportunities.
Yes. And then going a step further from that career transition piece, but and one of the things that we have to think about is because most people think about branding in career transition or from an entrepreneurial perspective. But what people need to think about of those who are in their jobs every single day is how can my brand support the work I do? How can it create better introductions, better trust, increased or elevated conversations the next time you walk into a meeting because they're already seeing the knowledge, the expertise, and the skills, and they have language to talk about what you do now. So most
Yeah.
times within career transitions is talking about what I've done to get to where I want to go next. And that's the focus. Where when you're
Yeah.
building your brand at work, the transition from that, once you've got into that role, is now when people are looking you up, they're actually looking you up to find out what you do now. So people need to recognize that the branding transition doesn't stop once you find the job. In fact, it keeps going so that you can now give them the language about what you do now and not just what you did to get the job.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I just want to talk a little bit the angle there because you talk about work, but building your brand online in terms of the benefits is, when you think about it, like I'm going to talk more about it from my building your voice by sharing your message online, is that you really increase your credibility, being seen as that
Yes.
go-to authority, and building that credibility there. Like we've seen many people. If you look at LinkedIn of how they really build their brands online over the years by being known for a domain expertise, whether
Mhm.
it's talking about
Mhm.
mental health or leadership or about gaming, whatever that is that you want to be known for, you double
Right.
down on that and talk about it. And so that you become known for that as well.
And then one thing I want to add to that, because here's the thing that, and this is where I would say that a lot of people who don't want to be known for anything. So like when we think about building your
Mhm.
brand online, we're dealing with not necessarily type A personalities, but people who have a mission and a voice for a specific area that they want to be known for. Some people just want to be known for what they're doing right now in their job. They don't
Yeah.
care about
Yeah.
building their brand online in that sense. But that doesn't mean that you opt out. So, what those people, and there's a large majority, yes, we have people who want to build their thought leadership and create stage opportunities and platform opportunities, which is amazing. But there's a whole set of people who are amazing at their job, who are excellent leaders, but are not necessarily concerned with doing what you just talked about, right? That's
Yeah.
just not their thing. They go to work, they
Yeah.
want to kill it at work, but that they leave it at work. And there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that.
Yes.
But what I would encourage those people who are thinking, well, I don't want to build my brand online, let's reframe what that means for you. So, in the sense of you do have an online presence, you have online profiles, people are looking you up in your role to see what you do and how you can help, and if they can refer you or trust you. And so, it is your job to have an online presence, a digital presence where it makes sense, where it gives people that language to talk about you, where it sets the stage for the meeting that you're walking into, where it
Yeah.
reinforces that conversation that you just had. No, you're not out there posting all the time. That doesn't have to be for you. And this is where my mission comes into play. Yes, of course, I work with people who want to build their brand online, but I would say that the majority of incredible leaders and professionals don't want that full branding package,
Yeah.
but they do need to
Yeah.
work on their brands.
I'm so glad you're talking about this, and I want to hear it from the audience. Like, how many of you are in that camp where great experience, but you don't necessarily want to have like the active voice presence. But what I'm hearing from you, Cher, is it's that first impression, right? It's like the
Yes.
image management, managing that first impression, even though we don't have to actually be sharing our expertise there. But it's really think about how we want to be seen. What's that first impression
Yes,
that we want to
and
give?
I would say it goes beyond that first impression because while they may not want to have this incredible digital presence, like similar to what we are doing out there because we have different goals and things, they are that occasional poster where they will talk about when they're at a conference or something like that and the relationships that they've created or even an aha moment in a training or a book they're reading. So they're but they don't want to do it like a drive-by branding without the thought and the expertise, because there's a lot of fear around what it is they can put out there, and will it make their brand, will it decrease their brand credibility, and they just want to do it right. Again, they're not
Yeah.
trying to put the reps in to become this all-star LinkedIn voice or anything like that, but they do want to look great online. They're
Look
just
great
their
online. Yes.
intervals are not as it's not as a consistent, so it's not as consistent or as often as someone like you or me. But what they do want to do is that when you do look me up, you put some respect on my name. That's what they want.
There you go. Look great. I really love that take. It's almost like that digital business card, right? I
Yes.
look great. I really love what you mentioned here. That's
Thank
amazing.
you.
Amazing. Awesome. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next. Yes, a good point there, Cher. I love that. Love that. Let's move to our next question, Cher.
Okay.
Let me see. Where are we now? Okay. Okay. What are the key elements of building a strong personal brand at work and online? What are the first steps someone should take?
One of I would say that the first thing that anybody needs to do, because at the end of the day, so my take on personal branding and the strategy and approach that I take has always been rooted in communication strategies and communication practices, because I have a background in
Mhm,
corporate communications and PR. And so the first thing you need to know is, what is it you want to accomplish? And in when it comes to your brand at work, so you need to know what you need to accomplish in your role right now, right? That is key, because your brand should be structured and communicated in a way that supports that. Maybe there's aspects, maybe you're in sales, maybe you're in leadership and you have to attract talent, or maybe you're an expert at a specific area, and in tech or whatever the case may be, but you need to make sure that your brand supports when you reach out, or if you are speaking at conferences, if you are presenting on behalf of the company, whatever the case may be, what does your brand need to show? Right. So you need to know that. What are your goals in your role? What do you want to accomplish with that? Then you got to look at, what are your career goals? What are your, and not just my next job. What about the relationships that you need to create? So looking at what's a goal for you as far as where you want to be, who do you need to know, that sort of thing. And then again, when you're thinking about your brand at work, one of the incredible internal visibility strategies is taking a look at how your brand or aspects of your brand aligns with the company's brands and their goals. So looking at, well, I know that as a leader, I have to attract talent. And so that clearly, attracting great talent is any company's goal. So you become an asset. So you can look at
yep.
areas where you can become an asset. So to get back to what you're saying is, what's the first thing you need to figure out? Your goals in those three areas when building your brand at work. And then the next thing is the messaging. How do you create
Mm,
message that aligns with that, which means a deep dive into your own inventory of skills. But I'll stop there and let you respond, because I know you have
I
stuff to
love
add.
it. I love it. Yeah, I'm gonna build on it, right? I love that you take this on at work, and I'm gonna add on to this is when it comes to, like, because I've done a lot of work helping people make transitions and the online stuff, is I think the other thing to add on is to really know your audience. What do
Yes.
they care about? Like, when it comes to looking, say, for new opportunities, like, what are the pain points? What are those hiring requirements? Getting really clear on that. And when it comes to building your brand online, if you really do want to share content, is really getting clear, like, what are those common questions people ask? What
Yes.
are those pain points? Or getting clear on that so that it will help you to use that language. By understanding the audience, it's really going to help you with that there. Because
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. Because the other thing I want to add on back to the messaging piece is when you
Yes.
understand that, it's going to help you communicate also the benefits of
Mm-hmm.
working with you. You want to
Mm-hmm.
communicate the benefits of the work with you, not just the features of your experience, your strengths, and all that, but really coming to the benefits of how you can help them. Yeah. The other thing I was gonna add, because that one of the first steps I love
Okay.
doing with my clients is conducting a perception survey of understanding of how others perceive you. Because part of personal branding is what's the impression that you give, like what are you known for? And just really
Mm-hmm.
understanding, are there any gaps, or are you actually get seen in a way of how you want to build your brand? I find that's a very eye-opening exercise when my clients do this. They're like, oh wow, like these are the words that people use to describe me or how they would use describe me at the value that I bring to the table there.
I think that can definitely be really helpful. It's not something that I do with my clients, but again, we're there's so many opportunities to get different perspectives, and I think that that method is important for me. What I do when I'm working with my clients' messaging is is really focusing on what it is they want, and then to your point, looking at that audience and understanding what their pain points are. So just exactly what you're saying is understanding that, and then messaging and crafting around, well, what does your brand bring to the solution of those pain points? Because if you can talk in problems, so meaning the problems that you solve, and position yourself as the person that they can trust to solve those problems, you immediately are breaking through the filter and the noise to get their attentions, because it's like, oh, Diana knows that I have this problem and she understands that problem. I'm going to talk to her. So that's one of the things. So and I do see the value of getting other people's perspectives and perceptions of what they think about them. But for me, when it comes to building your brand at work and working on the messaging, I go right into the problem. So that,
Mm,
but I love, I mean, both approaches are great. But again, when I'm building that brand at work, it's really about that solution oriented
solution
approach of
oriented.
like cutting right into it and getting sure that the
Yeah,
message aligns with the audience.
yeah. Could you share like an example around that, like based on a goal, and what would be something that they could work towards? Like, what would be an example, a case
Yeah.
study
Okay.
that we
So
could
for
share?
example, sometimes looking at, well, what's been their challenge
Hmm.
of for example, I had this one client and she worked in an industry or was describing an industry that it's like a subset of an industry. And the way it was being described was, I didn't, so she works in, trying to, so she works in the retail space, and she's a buyer, and she has stores. She's responsible for over 250 stores in different hotels in North America. But the way that it was positioned, it was resorts. So immediately when I'm thinking about, and her goal was to get more high-end clients to want to put their products into the stores. Right.
Right.
So one of the things, and so she would work with different designers and get their stores in these, get their products in these high end stores. But the way that it was being described is, we have our resort stores and hotels, and and it was interesting because there was a disconnect. So once we repositioned so that she clearly communicated what it was she does, what it was she does for these designers, all of a sudden it was like, when she's reaching out to the people that she needs to reach out with, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I get what you do. And
Yeah.
so the example here, and I didn't do a great job explaining it, but the example here is making sure that there's clarity in the messaging. And that clarity comes from knowing the goals that you want to accomplish. The clarity comes from knowing the audience that you're working with and
Yeah.
what they need to understand about what you do and how you solve their problems. So it's always diving deep into that, but then also the clarity in which of your skills and what you do and your knowledge and your expertise, what is it that you're actually going to put to the forefront? Because a lot of people I work with, they're established in their careers at the one-on-one level. They're established, so they have so many things to pick and choose from, and they got to hone it down to what matters most to the problems that they're solving, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
It does. I mean, as I'm hearing this, is actually very similar to a lot of the work that I do with those in career transition. Like, I really
Mhm.
want to encourage those listening to this is to take the time to do that exercise. Like, is your messaging clear? Do people
Yes.
really understand it? Like, especially if you work in spaces may be complicated or complex. How do I really simplify that so that it's really clear when people are listening to
Yes.
that messaging there? Yeah. So I love that you're bringing that out. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
All right, let's move into the next question here, shall we? Okay. How does one navigate the balance between authentic and fitting into a company's culture when building their personal brand at work?
This is a good one. So, one of the strategies or one of the things I think is really important is understanding what your Easter eggs are. So, and I'll explain that concept in just a second. So, what we have to recognize is I'm not a big fan of we bring our whole selves to work. Yes, we do, but we bring our best selves to work, and we have to recognize that what we pick and choose of what we are going to share at work, and that's important. And this is first for me advocating you need to be in a place where you don't feel that you need to censor yourself or you feel that you are not in the right space. That's a different conversation for a different day. However, we all in every different social setting and societal setting, we bring different parts of our personality. So when it comes to aligning our brands with the culture, you've got to look at where's the culture fit, or where's the add rather than culture fit. What can you add to the culture that is already there to make it better, right? So whether that's
Yeah.
your knowledge, expertise, or whether that's what you bring again to culture, like if you're one of those people who are focused and focus on supporting internally. For example, you lead an ERG, an employee resource group, where you are part of the volunteering for what's going on within employee engagement, or you're one of those people who are naturally bringing and attracting talent into the company. Those are things where you are adding to the culture. And so what I would say is look at, because you want to be strategic, right? You're there for a reason. You're
Yeah.
there for a
Yeah.
value exchange, and that includes your paycheck, right? But you want to make sure that when you are exchanging value, you're also getting to some degree some sort of recognition for it, and even perhaps reward. And those often do come hand in hand when done in the right way. So going back to getting your brand to fit the culture, you got to look at where you add and where there's alignment to the culture. And there's not everything it's not everything's for you, but nowhere do we go where there's everything for you. But if you are strategic with your brand at work and looking for those alignments, looking for where you can add to a goal, go in that lane. But also, you still have to, the closer you bring your brand to you, meaning the way I speak now is the way that I speak when I'm hanging out with you, when I'm at a conference, when I'm on a stage. Like, this is it. There are times when I might slow down my delivery because I'm really thinking about what I'm trying to communicate so it's effective. But for the most part, what you see is what you get. And the closer we can get to that in a values alignment way, so aligning those values to the culture and to what the core values of the company are, you can get very far and be strategic with that. I don't know if that answers the question, but that's where I'm going to go
Yeah.
with that.
Well, as I'm hearing this, Cher, like I'm thinking, with those who actually intentionally or strategically manage their brand at
Yes.
work, what's the impact when I think about, let's just say if someone wants to work on, let's say, high profile projects at
Yes.
work, right? Or have an opportunity to work with more executives, right? I guess I guess where I'm connecting is like how like managing your brand strategically could help when you get, say,
Yes.
on more exposure, more strategic projects.
Okay, so two things. One, I would call that accessing what I call the hidden opportunity market. So, similar to the hidden job market where you knew somebody and you got access to a job market, there are a ton of opportunities at work where you'll look and you'll see people. Why did they get the opportunity to speak on behalf of the
Yeah.
company? Why was their opinion solicited for this task force, for this direction, for this special project? Why are they being chosen to be a part of this new initiative? Whatever the case may be, those are hidden opportunities. And when you can align your brand to set you up to attract those opportunities, perhaps if you want to be speaking for the company, even on webinars or at conferences or at community events, for example, you got to show them that you can speak. So where's your proof? Right.
Yes.
So things like
Yes.
that. And then that other piece that I touched on, but I didn't, I'm going to bring it back around so I can close the loop on that. As I talked about Easter eggs. So those are
Yeah,
the things that I find one of the best things that the best strategies that we can bring ourselves into the fold. And here's what I mean by that. The things that you're interested in, the things that make you you, you can insert them into the way you communicate, your background. So like I'm into music and you'll see that like things like hip hop. I've done a personal branding slider about the hip hop lyrics and branding lessons that were hidden inside of them. I've got like behind me, I've got like a mixer behind me. And so those are little things that give you kind of a bit of an insight into who I am. And to those who actually care or align with those little things, they lean in. They're the ones who are making that immediate connection. If you're reading a book, for example, and we're reading the same book, and I mentioned, oh, I read in this book, da 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 da, Diana, you could be like, I read that too, and that was so incredible. That's an Easter egg because that gives me insight into what you read, what you
exactly.
do. And then that creates those conversations, relationships, and it adds you into the culture of what you're doing.
There you go. I love that because it's essentially this goes back to how you become more memorable, right? Or how you stand
Hmm.
out by adding on more of that things that you are interested or that you care about that people
Yes.
remember about you beyond the day-to-day of the work that you do.
Yes.
Yes, good
Yes.
advice. What do we have here? Yeah, good advice here. Amazing, amazing. All right, I love it. So the next question here is let's talk about common mistakes that people make when
Mm.
trying to establish their brand in a corporate setting and online. I'll let you take the work setting. I'll do the online one.
Okay. So the work setting, I would say one of the common mistakes that people are doing right now is they're dropping the mic on their introductions. So here's what I mean by that is I don't care how established most professionals are. I would say that majority of professionals have not worked on their introduction. So when
Yes.
and contextual and being able to contextualize that introduction. So for example, if you are representing your team, right? And you are in this larger meeting, how are you introducing yourself? And what your team does, right? What is the language that you're saying so that it immediately increases your trust factor? Oh,
Yeah.
this is the person that I'm going to for this particular information or this particular expertise when it comes to this grander project, right? So people will, drop the mic and be like, "Oh, I'm Cher Jones and I'm the project manager for this team." That means absolutely nothing. If you take 5 more seconds to just give a little bit more of a deep dive on what you do, or even if it's like I'm Cher Jones, I'm a personal branding expert. Okay. And there's a million of us, right? But
Yeah.
if I take the time and be like, hey, I'm Cher Jones and I am a personal branding expert for your brand at work. I help people build their careers, help make sure their brand supports their job and makes the company brand look good too. Now you know exactly what I do. That was 5 seconds more to give you context, to give you distinction and separation from everybody else because hey, you're looking at two personal branding experts right here, right now. So
Yeah.
you have to don't drop the mic. Don't, and
Oh, drop the
don't
mic.
drop
I
the
love it.
ball. Yeah.
Yes. I have
So that's what I
I'm
would
gonna
say.
echo this point, okay, Sher, because
Yes.
I've ran workshops and webinars on telling a story called the glowing introduction.
Hmm.
And I think it is so, so important to nail your introduction there,
Yes.
right? Going from boring to interesting. And the
Yes.
challenge I want to give the audience here is really think of it as value statements, right? The value that you bring or how you can make it more interesting of what you bring to the table or how you represent your team as
Yes.
well. That
Yes.
just elevates it. I've had like even clients where once they start the job, they had to rework with me their introduction because
Yes.
they're working virtually and people don't know what they do.
Exactly. It's one of the most,
Okay.
and so when you're talking about one of the most common and most important mistakes that individuals are making is when they're introducing themselves, whether in a live setting, whether on stage, whether in a Zoom, whether face to face, introduce yourself well. And I have this one technique that I'll share that I always make people do is stick your landing. So like in gymnastics, you stick your landing, you end And that's just one statement that says, and I'm excited, or I'm excited to add to this conversation. So, or it's just something at the end where you are almost clarifying why you're here. And my
Yeah.
team has been working really hard on this level. And I look forward to giving the insight that we've collectively created. I'm totally talking off the top of my head here, but it's like after you've introduced yourself, I'm really excited about what we're going to learn today. I'm really excited about getting connected to and whoever you're looking to get connected to, or to share the insights that you're bringing back from your team. Whatever it is, it's like, make that little extra stick beyond just you. It's your
Yeah.
intention of what you want to
Yeah.
get out of this meeting. It levels you up to a whole new
Oh,
level.
this is so good. I would love to hear from the audience the nuggets you're taking from this, because what you're teaching here, Cher, it's showing that you want to have a seat at the table, that you want to own
Hmm.
your voice, that you
Yes.
want to share, you want to participate, you want to add value, you want
Yeah.
to contribute to the
Yeah.
conversation here. That's what it is. And that, that's how you be seen and be heard,
Exactly.
right? Oh, so this is so good. Amazing, amazing. In terms of mistakes I see
I was going to ask,
online.
what's yours? What do you see?
I love that. I've never really heard people have introductions. I love that you said that one here. I would say what I see, I mean, for building on brand online, it's really, to me, it's like the big, I know it's the generic one, but it's the consistency, right?
Yeah.
Consistency of how you show up online, whether how you introduce yourself, how you share in terms of your messages, your content. Is there consistency, or people feel like they're lost of what you're sharing? Do they know, like, do they know you? Do they like you? Do they trust you? I think that's
Mm-hmm.
a key piece here when you're really trying to build your brand online, to build that authority. You want to be consistent with your messaging so that people remember you there.
And then, so I would ask you, especially as someone who specializes in that transition, how would you then suggest, let's say someone's pivoting from a completely different area, right? They're
Yeah.
going from finance into tech, and they weren't in a tech role in finance. They're going from finance to tech. How do they start transitioning their brand consistently so that they can channel that messaging from one and then bridge it over to the next?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I see that a lot, right? A really
Yes, I
common
bet.
thing is people pivot different industry or pivot into new profession. The key here is, I always say, is essentially in terms of amplifying that voice, is talk more about where you're heading, right?
Mm,
If you are interested in tech, for example, you're pivoting from finance, for example, you want to talk more about tech in terms of what's happening on the trends, or engaging in conversations around that and learning more about it and sharing what's interesting about it. Like, show that
right.
you are interested, even though you don't have the expertise yet, but you can showcase first, at least in terms of engaging conversations around that,
Hmm.
and then start talking more about it to build that, so that you essentially, it's being more top of mind. How to be top of
Love
mind
it.
as you continue to build that over and over there. It happens all the time, but I'm like, if you want people to remember you, like that, you're not. For example, I had a client who went from nonprofit to big tech. That's a big transition
Mm, yeah.
in the education sector, right? Nonprofit to tech, very, very big a difference. And as she was interviewing for all of these big tech roles, one of the perceived feedback is, you don't have big tech experience or background, right? And so one of the things that she's started doing more of is actually really reading up more about the trends and talking about it, or even getting certificates in that
Yes.
space, like the digital cloud space, so that she can speak about it when she went into interviews, or she can share insights about it on post as well. And that really helped her build essentially the credibility and showcase that someone has the appetite for learning and growing in this new
Mm,
space.
bars. You just dropped a bunch of bars right there. That is so good. That is so good. That is exactly what people need to hear. So perfect.
Yeah, yeah, and it's possible. I wanna tell people that if you are
Mm,
looking to make that pivot transition of how you need to amplify, essentially, like, change how, essentially, how you've been perceived in terms of what you're used to doing, and really understanding what's this new space and what they're looking for, and how do you amplify that.
hmm.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Amazing, amazing. Let me see if there are questions or anything coming in. What are we learning so far? Okay, let me see here. Jennifer shared, transforming your introduction into a value statement. That is gold. I love it.
Exactly. Exactly. You got to let them
Dan Quick.
know. Hey,
Wow,
Dan.
soul power. I love it. Yes. Honing on your focus. Good share. Amazing, amazing. Yes, keep on
Thank
coming.
you. Mhm.
What else here? Talk more about where you're going. Solid advice.
Mhm.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, what's our next question here, Cher? Let me see here. Is what are the key differences in managing personal brand for someone who is self-employed versus someone in a corporate job?
Mm. So I would say the biggest, as someone who's done both, and, and funny, counseling one and doing the other, the biggest difference I would think is it is I would say production, like the amount of the amount that you need to put out there to to stay top of mind, to create larger audiences. But then it's funny because like I pull back for a second because there are people who have an entrepreneurial role who
Yeah,
need to turn up the volume on their brand, and there are some that don't require. It's more of like a maintenance and ad hoc sort of updates here and there, or like adding into the conversation as their capacity or permits. And whereas other people in different roles, they've got to treat their brand like an entrepreneur in that space. So it really depends. But I would say, so let's call them, whether they're entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs, the requirement is just more volume, more activity, more expansion, more amplification of their voice, their
yeah,
their skill set, more proof. They're putting more proof out there, so that proof comes in within content. I think especially now as we're in this whole chat GPT era, one
yeah,
of the things that we need to recognize is that the more you can do this, and I mean get on video or do audio rooms to prove that you are not just 3 prompts deep. You know what I'm saying? Like you
yeah.
actually know what you're talking about and you can apply this knowledge to something specific. That's where we're going to see increased trust, as well as companies who are looking more and more at the employees who are who have a solid brand, that they can trust them to communicate, they can trust them to post about the opportunities that they're sending them to. So that's the thing. If your company is sending you to conferences, or sending you into the field, into the community, whatever your role is, you want to leverage these opportunities more so for internal visibility, and even external. Of course, that's important, but looking at what is the proof that you're bringing back, what is it you're sharing. And I would say another thing from a self-employed or the entrepreneurial employees, the those who are not on that level, I want you guys to still think in a content mindset, because content is not just for the internet. Content can significantly increase your value when you have it as an attachment to a report. So you have videos where you went on site onto a customer's at a customer's plant, customer's event, whatever, and you're sharing videos that you don't necessarily want to share online, and you don't have to. Attaching them and having the right eyeballs see that can elevate your brand internally as well. So content is not just for the internet. So I would say
Mhm.
content is important either way. The entrepreneurial folks, it is about expansion, reach, relationships, amplification, whereas internally it's about proof, showing what you know, showing what you can do, showing what you want to do, and looking for the right places where that content can live.
I really like that because what I'm hearing is ultimately here is you are elevating your market value.
Yes.
You're elevating your market value, so essentially that you become more less, what's the word? Dispensable, in a way that you
Yes.
wanna showcase that you're valuable,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So you're gathering this proof, like the evidence of support, essentially,
Yes.
of how
It's the
you are
proof of your
building.
promise, right? What is your
Exactly.
brand
It's the
promise? You've got to show proof of that. And
yeah.
that's it. And you've got to think about that. You've got to be intentional about it.
Yeah, yeah, and you know what, the other thing is when I think about this right now too, when we think about the evolution of work and reading a lot of reports, like how organizations are really moving to like a skills-based organization and being adaptable, versatile is important. I feel like part of this as you build your personal brand, you are also showcasing other sides of your skills in terms of
Yes.
creativity, innovation, or how you interact with, let's say, different stakeholders or external clients. You are showcasing more of that diverse skills that you have to
Yes.
offer.
Yes, exactly. And just being intentional about it. Like, here's the thing, personal branding works when you do the work, but it's
Mm,
that second part. Do the
yes,
work, and it's not for everybody. It should be for everybody, but let's be real, it's not for everybody because it does require work. There's levels to it, right? We can turn up and down the volume depending on the season of that we're in with work, capacity, career, and all that stuff. But there is that bare minimum that people need to do to make sure, again, that we set the stage. Right. We have at least the ground support, the base language so that people are not just saying, oh, Diana's awesome. That's not good enough. That's not going to get you an opportunity if someone's just calling you awesome. You've got to
yeah,
give them the language that they communicate why you're awesome and the problems that you solve and the things that you can do and have done and are willing to do for others in your role and where you're going. So
yeah,
branding works when you do the work.
absolutely. From your experience, when you go in to do these workshops, do you find that most people have they actually really intentionally thought about managing their brand at
No,
work, or most haven't really?
most haven't because again, especially you and I, we come from this entrepreneurial space where this is like regular conversation. This is
Yeah,
we think in content and we think that the world thinks in content and they really don't. Right? We are at a place now where people have an understanding and there's so many facets to personal branding that it becomes so confusing, right?
yeah,
There's the branding of like our friend Renee Lindo and how you dress and how you show up and you're dressing for the job. That's one aspect of your brand, right? There's the aspect of branding where it's like, where's my headshot, my colors, my this, how am I, do I have any graphics and what am I putting out there that way? That's another aspect of personal branding. And then there's all the content and thought leadership. And again, not everybody
yeah,
wants to be a thought leader. Right. And
yeah,
those that do, absolutely, like that we're talking next level stuff, but those are bigger goals and not everybody has those goals. So I have to recognize that for those who don't. But going into, they recognize that they need a brand, but they don't know where to start. And there's a lot of personal mental barriers when it comes to building your brand because they may have those barriers and those fears around, am I bragging, am
yes,
I doing too much, right? By putting all this stuff there, is it going to make me look like I'm doing too much, that I'm trying too hard, or
yes,
will this make me look stupid if I put that out there? Will people question my skills if I tell people what I have done? Will they believe it? And I'm like, did you do it? Yes. Then put it out there. You're just putting out facts, but you have to frame it in a service. And that's, I feel like this is the shift that it takes for people is when they can frame their experience in service. So when they talk about
mm,
what it is they do and how they can help and now their experience, and here's why you can trust me. So
yes, I
that
love it.
that that order then allows you to, that gives you the permission to talk about your experience and put it out there. But it should not, most people, what they've learned in the past and they don't like is when someone says, hey, I went to Harvard, I did this, and I've worked on this team and I've done that and I've done that. But wait, I just said hello. And you're already telling me all that. So they don't want to be that person. Right. But again, framing and what they do and how they help. And here's why you can trust me.
Here
Right.
there you go. That is the
Yeah.
flow. I love that, I love that. Like, you've already addressed a lot of our next question in terms of how to leverage your achievements and milestones in a corporate setting without appearing boastful. It's really
Yes.
like providing the facts, right? I know a lot of times I
100%.
hear from people feeling that, they don't feel comfortable, about bragging, but when you really, uh, frame it from that, "How am I being of service? How am
Yes.
I adding value?" It
And
changes
here's
the
why
experience.
you can trust me. It's
Yeah,
that part where it's like, remember, you want them to trust you so that they feel comfortable that it is in your hands and you've got this. Don't worry. I've got this. And here's why you don't have to worry. I have done
yes.
this. I've worked with this type of business, these types of clients. So you can trust me. And that's
Yes.
why you're communicating it. It's like, oh, that's why I need to let them know.
Yes. Okay, I just need to emphasize what you're teaching or what we're talking about right now, for those who are listening here, this strategy applies when you're going for an interview as well.
Yes, absolutely.
You're conveying why they should trust you. You need to convey that, right? Not just, "Oh, I have X years experience, I do this, but here's why you should trust me is because I can help you with this. I can help you
Mhm.
achieve these goals, or the benefits of this would be this." So you are communicating also, like, what I call, like, the promise statements or commitment statements of
Mhm.
how you can help them, and that's how
Yes.
you gain that trust or convince them to buy you at the end of the day.
100%. And then when you've got the stories, when you've got the examples, which I'm sure you are drilling in with your clients on
Oh,
what they
yeah.
need so that they are telling those effective stories in the right way, right? By positioning that problem, by positioning who it is they're serving and what it is you did to help them sleep at night, to help them get what they could get done, to help achieve the results that they wanted. Now, then when you and the reason why you're able to do it so effectively is because you've done this in the past with this client, with that client, with that. No, anyways, but you get it.
I get it. You gotta own it. The key is you
You got
gotta
to own
own
it.
it, right? You
You
gotta
got to
own it.
own
Own
it.
your
That's
greatness.
right.
We call it to shine. Okay, so I wanna hear from the audience. Any questions for us before we wrap up here? I think we have a couple more questions. This is so juicy, Cher. I love it.
It is because it's like we're going back and forth, right? So,
We're diving deep. I love it
mhm.
because we're both in this personal branding space. So I just love that we're able to just go deep together here.
Yes.
Let's talk about storytelling because you alluded to that. We had a
Mhm.
question here on personal branding. Where is it here? Um, of how where is it? There you go. How can one effectively use storytelling in their personal brand, both online and at work?
One of the things that I would suggest you start to look at, okay, so there's do some inventory on the experiences that you've created for others, right? So if you think about it, where that person that you've worked with has had an aha moment. That person at you created something, you created a solution, you added, and sometimes it's not you're the one leading the solution, but your contribution to that solution. You've got to look at the before, the what happened to create this explosion moment, and then afterwards, how did things change? So if you look at that, it's like, what was the moment before? What was that explosion or like that change, that aha, and that made everything change? And then being able to describe the after is an easy way to look at the storytelling. And you've got to look at it in the way of, again, we're using these stories to increase trust. So it is proof, right? So you've got to look at, well, here's one way that I helped this client. I did it this way. This was their problem. This is what we did. And as a result, this is what happened. And being able to bring people into the moment. So the storytelling now is like, how do you engage your audience? How do you make them lean in? And that's the dramatized style where you bring them into a moment. So there's this one book that I'm absolutely loving. I'm reading it right now. It's called Stories That Stick by Kendra Hall. That is a phenomenal book, and she doubles down, triple, actually quadruples down on four different storytelling stories that you need in business. And so that would be a recommendation. Kendra Hall, Stories That Stick.
I
And
love it.
that's basically what we need to do, because those stories can be created in content but or shared in content. It can be shared in, if you're sharing your own transformation story, right, of how you got to this point, or if you are creating content for who you were 3 years ago. And that's one of the things that I always tell my clients to do if they want to tip their toe into thought leadership and what they know, and they're just they want to be a thought leader one day, but they're just trying it out. Talk to you 3 years ago. What do you wish you knew 3 years ago that would have accelerated your journey and help you to leapfrog over the common mistakes? If you think about that and think about those stories that impacted you, people will hear you and
Yeah.
listen to what you have to say.
I love that. I love the framework that you shared. Essentially, it's going from like that problem to that transformation, that
Mhm.
framework. And I reflect back when I think back, my journey to LinkedIn Top Voice in 2022. The year before, that was when I started to share more stories.
Mm.
I intentionally shared more stories than just my expertise. Like, I really went deep, like, to really share my upbringing
Mhm.
story of how I moved to Canada on my own when I was 16, how I struggled and, like, took grade 13 English 3 times, or I really share a lot of the lows as well, and
Right.
how I use that as a motivation
Yes.
to do what I do. Like, even the work at the store I share about my markability is all about helping people stand out and differentiate. And it was
Yes.
because growing up, I struggled to fit in.
Mm.
And so my story is all about helping people to stand out, to own their
Right.
greatness with confidence so
Right.
that they can shine.
And that's your
And so when
origin
you
story,
that's the
right?
origin story, right? And
And
so that
everyone
comes about
has
what you say,
one.
trust. Yeah, everyone
Yes.
has one. And I think when you talk about building trust, part of it's also the relatability
Yes.
and for people to know that no one's perfect.
Mhm.
Sharing about that story and your journey of how you got to where you are, today as well, and I think
Exactly.
back, a lot of the posts that have done well for me had actually been through storytelling.
Everybody needs to write that down. It's like, how can I infuse storytelling into what I'm sharing? Because there is
Yeah,
that connection factor. And Diana, you really hit the nail on the head as far as, that need to explore your own origin story, the why you do what you do. And people will see that connection and hear your passion if you can tap into your own why. And I'm not here to say that this is easy work. Sometimes it is better when when you can work with a coach like Diana or myself, where we are helping you and seeing, because we're so used to now spotting and listening to the story, that we're
yeah,
able to pull it out and the parts that matter. Because that's the other thing, is like, how do we whittle it down and just get to the points that really matter? That's how you can work with a coach to help you understand those
absolutely,
different areas.
absolutely, and by doing that too, you're gonna be able to identify those essentially your unique factors, what differentiates
Right.
you. That's something I love doing,
Right.
Cher. It's helping to,
Yes.
like, "This is so unique, this is so, like, you," right?
Yes.
And that's how
And
you stand out in the market.
exactly. And then you can also, this is a transferable skill, because one of the things that I'm actually leaning some of my corporate training into is helping teams develop their team brand and their personal brands within the team brand. And one of the things that we're doing is identifying the stories that can help the team better communicate results and how to work with this team, and also the people within the team, what skills that this collective team brings to the project, brings to the initiative, brings to the division. So that is something that's really, I'm seeing this new, how collectively these individual brands create this team brand, and identifying the stories, those work stories, those stories of transformation, those stories that illustrate how to better work with the team, so that people can understand that these are the processes that are in place, and here's the reason why, and here's an example of when someone does this, these are the results that we
Yeah.
can bring to you.
I think that's brilliant
Thank
because
you.
you're elevating collectively as a
Yes.
team, and I
Yes.
bet you that elevates the perceived value of the team.
Yes. And then the individuals get to see their individual contribution into the team, the collective team collaboration and contribution. So
Oh, this was so good, Cher.
it was.
I want to ask the audience, what are your biggest takeaway from today's conversation? What action will you take?
Yeah.
Cher, as you look to 2024, like what are some of your predictions when you think of from a personal branding perspective here?
Okay. So, especially from the personal branding perspective at work, we are going to see more companies that are paying more attention to their employees that are contributing to the company brand online, meaning those who are sharing internal culture moments. Let's say, for example, they did something, Habitat for Humanity, and they're sharing those moments. Those individuals who share that moment of culture, that connection, they're going to get more eyeballs around. Like I always say, streets is watching, right? So you'll have people that know who you are and you won't even realize it. You'll see that companies are starting to now collaborate with their internal creators more to create content, to co-create content, to send them out on podcasts, because they're recognizing the value of the personal brand at work, and how they show up will help them access those hidden opportunities, those who build their brand at work, those who are being very strategic with their brands online. So how they show up on LinkedIn, how they show up on their internal talent management systems. Those things are really important, by the way. Those profiles, their profiles in their associations and organizations that they're a part of, their professional associations or organizations. People usually phone that stuff in, especially their internal profiles, or all of their profiles, for example. But if you take the time, give people the language to talk about you, establish the story that you want people to tell about you and the expectations they can now set because they've interacted with your brand, you're going to open up doors. So trend is those that are actively collaborating, at least mentally, with the company brand and being strategic and intentional about that. They're going to see opportunities, those hidden opportunities, all of a sudden be very visible to them. So that's my thought there.
I love that. I mean, at the end of the day, it is being strategic, intentional, right? It keep paying attention to what's happening of the company's needs and how do you adapt it accordingly. And I think from an online perspective, I think it is really, I'm definitely seeing more people sharing their
Yes.
voices, building their brands online. So being really intentional about that and the community that you want to build, the network that you want to
Yes.
build, so that your brand can work for you as well as you continue to amplify your voices online there. Like I feel like the last several years, having intentionally built my brand online, like I've expanded my network globally, not just locally.
Yes. Yes.
And so what that means is like there could be more global opportunities,
100%.
essentially.
And that visibility, and you become more of an asset. If you are visibly showing that you have relationships with the clients, you have relationships with the partners, with the vendors, with other stakeholders, there's no one who's recession or future proof, but you do increase your value. You do become more of an asset. So that asset travels with. Right. So let's make sure you're just being more intentional. And those that are, again, branding works when you do the work. So just have a strategy and make
Just
it
have
work.
a strategy, make it
Yeah.
work, right? I
Yeah.
feel like we really built a case today of why personal branding is so important.
Yeah.
Like if there is a takeaway for any of you here as you move into 2024 is I really recommend to double down on personal branding.
Yes.
Right? Because we talked
Absolutely.
about all the benefits here is just double down on it, right? Pick a goal and work on it. And then from there, I'm going to go 3, like double down on personal branding. The second, double down on relationship building, like nurturing your network, because you never know what opportunities may come your way. And the third piece I would say is to really, I would say, double down on the skills, like skills development, like
Yes.
diversifying that skills, like going back to being more versatile and showcasing different skills, especially with the growing of like AI and digital, diversifying that. And when you work on these 3 things, you're going to see more amplification of opportunities coming your way.
Nailed it.
Right?
It.
All right, so let's wrap up and see what the key action items or key learnings from our audience here share. We have Jennifer says, include more storytelling in my content. Love the idea of developing a team brand. My takeaway is think about how to do this with my team.
Yes.
I love that, Sharon.
Yes, Sharon.
Great. Yes. Sheldon share plan is like a global domination.
I'm down with that.
I love this. So Cher, where can people find you here?
Your number one spot is definitely LinkedIn. That's the best, most interactive way to find me. And that's where I'd love for you to find me. You can also check me out over on Instagram. I'm more of a lurker and interactor in the DMs because that's what I do, and occasionally sharing. But really, LinkedIn is the best place. Of course, you can hang out over at my website. All the links are on LinkedIn. And that's where I'd suggest you go.
Yeah, go follow Cher. Check out her courses as well for those who are looking to learn more about building your brand as well online or live streaming. Definitely check out her course there. So I got the QR code up. Feel free to check that out there. And you can also check out my courses. I've got 7 courses, and the latest one is on personal branding.
I love it.
Yes, amazing. Well, thank you so much, Cher. This was such a delight to do this with you today.
Oh, it was phenomenal. I love talking shop and the intercourse between the two of us, because we're just like adding.
I know,
It was just stacking. Yeah, stacking deep. So that was awesome.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, everyone. We hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Cheers.
Bye.